Inside Elliot's Loft, we're inside Elliot's Loft. You have an idea what's getting ready to come. When I think about it, inside Elliot's Loft, it's a provocative conversation. Very provocative. Basically, usually around love, life, and relationships. And if you put all that together, if you have to put it under a heading, the heading would be When Black Men Talk. Yeah, that's basically what we've been about for so many years. I try not to remember how long we've been doing it. I'm just happy I have the opportunity to do it. I'm Mark Elliott. I've been your host for quite some time, and we have talked about many different things. And this episode, we're going to speak of something else. We're going to speak of health in general. And we're going to really talk about an autonomous condition where the body's immune system attacks its own tissues and organs. The word is lupus. I'm going to bring someone into our episode that's dealing with this bravely and encouragingly sense. And I came across her and was listening to her. And I was amazed how she spoke about it, but at the same time, her helpfulness to help others. With that being said, I want to welcome in Stacy Bynum. Stacy, how are you?
Hi, Mark. I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, the pleasure's all mine. The pleasure's all mine. I want to ask and start here. How long have you been living with lupus?
This year will make 27 years.
Wow.
27.
Okay. Now, I must ask the question that most people avoid, but we just don't avoid asking questions on this podcast. How old are you?
I will be 58 next
50.
month.
Okay, 58. So if I do my math correctly, 58, lupus came to you at the age of 31. Am I correct?
Yes.
At 31. Okay. I'm going to go back prior to 31. Who was Stacy Bynum prior to lupus?
Stacy Bynum was outgoing, creative, still a creative, but I was not guarded. Just, outgoing. I was living my fitness journey, trying to get ready for the Miss Fitness competition. I'd always been an avid weight trainer since high school. And, just living life, just, working and, loving to spend time on the beach, things like that. I was just carefree pretty much.
Okay. What led you to your doctors to hear about your diagnosis?
Well, back then, I had a girlfriend who did nails, and good girlfriend of mine, and she would do my nails every few weeks. And one day I gone to get my nails done, and my hands were in a lot of pain. And so when she went to, I guess, do whatever you do with the nails, I snatched my hands back because they were hurting so bad. And she asked me, she was like, Stacy, what's going on? And I told her because I had been suffering with joint pain for at least 7 months before this incident. So for 7 months, I didn't say anything to anybody. And I just chalked it up to me working out at an early age. And I just thought it was arthritis catching up with me, And so that day, she told me, she said, we're going to the doctor. And so she made me make an appointment and she went with me. So if it were not for Kim, I don't know what I would have done. I would have probably kept going, beyond the 7 months before even trying to get a diagnosis.
Okay. Now, just thinking about that, sometimes when things are going on with us physically, we may avoid going to the doctors, but we don't want to hear what they might have to say. We kind of, in a sense, back of our mind, think if we don't go, we're just going to leave us. Was some of your thought process, even though you were dealing with the joint pain for 7 months?
Well, I think really my issue was, well, it's just the weight training catching up with me. I just need to take some pain meds. I don't think, because I've always been someone to go to the doctors on a regular basis. So I kept my annuals, all of that. So I've never been afraid of the doctor, but I just was just chalking it up to arthritis. And two, I just have, which is not good to say, but I have a high tolerance for pain. So I was just going about my business until it just got to a point where I couldn't squeeze toothpaste. I couldn't turn the key in the car. And then I was scooting up and down the steps, like a little baby is
Wow.
learning how to navigate the steps. I was on my bottom, scooting up and down. And so I was grateful to her that she insisted that I get to the doctor.
Okay. So, upon hearing or being told about the autoimmune condition of lupus, when they did all, I guess, I'm assuming they did a lot of different tests and stuff of that nature. What were your initial thoughts when they first said to you, you have lupus?
Uh, I lost it. I broke down immediately. I got the call when I was at work, and I had to leave work. I called my boss in tears, and I, told her, and she agreed that I could leave work, and I went straight to my girlfriend Kim's house, and I was in a fetal position on her couch for, I know, at least 2 hours, because when I heard that, I immediately got a picture in my mind of someone who I knew. Their mom had lupus, and I saw their outcome. And so I immediately thought that would be my outcome. And so I just, that was the best way I could process at the moment.
Okay.
I just fell apart.
Now, what was the outcome that you saw and you knew?
It was it was blindness in one eye. Um, their health was just, you know, they weren't in good health at all, just overall, and I was like, this can't be my story. This cannot be where I'm going to end up. And that was the only person I had known who had lupus. So I didn't know any other pictures of this disease at all.
Uh,
And so I just fell apart. But grateful, I was grateful because you hear that most people, it takes on average of maybe 6 months for them to even pinpoint a lupus diagnosis. But for me, it was nowhere near that. By the time I got uh, tested with the blood work, it was a matter of weeks. It was not months before that diagnosis came back.
okay. Now, once the diagnosis came back, what changed in your life? I'm sure there was medication, but what changed immediately in your life?
Mm, well, honestly, Mark, the um, what changed immediately was all of my hair fell out. All of my hair. I had long, thick hair. I've always had long, thick hair. And then, gradually I would notice I would be in the mirror combing my hair, and it was clumps of hair would just come out. That was hard for me. That was very hard because women, we love our hair. That's our crown.
Absolutely.
Um, and I would just stand in the mirror just crying because I'm like, what is happening? all of my hair is gone. And so that was one of the changes. Another change was outside of the joint pain, the hair. Um, I was on medication. Like the first medication they give you is prednisone. And so I believe back then I did have another medication. I think it was hydroxychloroquine, but I had not been taking it. And I was still very active, still, working out. And so one day we're at a church picnic and I'm just going about my little cute business. And and so my girlfriend Kim, because we went to the same church, I don't know what made her come up to me and ask me about how I was doing. And I told her, I must have said something about I wasn't taking my medicine regularly. And she said to me, and it stopped me in my tracks. She said, the only reason you're not taking this serious is because it's not affecting the way you look yet. She said, the only reason you're not doing right is because it hasn't changed anything about your physical yet. And she was right. And so, um, right after that, as a matter of fact, is when the hair started to come out and all of that. And so I knew I had to be diligent in keeping my regimen. I knew I was going to continue working out as best I could because early in my diagnosis, there was a time when I could not work out. I couldn't do anything. My physical appearance, it did change. I lost a lot of weight. I was very weak. But I was determined that I was going to get me back. I had been working out, like I said, since high school, and I was not going to allow this illness to take me down. And I just had a strong determination that whatever I had to do, um, that image that I had was not going to be my life or my story.
Okay. I want to walk back a little bit because not taking your medication, I want to understand that, and I get what she said to you. And Kim is an angel, to say the
Right.
least. Um, but why not take the medication? And I want to be, before you even answer that, I want to kind of make this point because that happens to a lot of people when it could be blood pressure medication, it could be something that they need to take. And it seems like if a doctor says take X, Y, Z, we kind of start and then we just kind of move away from it. We think we don't have to. So I want to just kind of get more of a clearer idea behind that. Why, in a sense, if you knew you had lupus, and I realized this years ago, but if you really realize you have lupus, why not be early on, be dedicated about taking the medication?
I believe it was, a large part in what Kim said because at that point it wasn't changing me. It wasn't affecting the way I looked, or anything. So I took it when I wanted to take it. And so that was the only part that, that was making me not take my medicine because it seems like, well, I was getting along day to day. The medicine did help the joint aches. Okay, it's helping me. So I don't have to take them every day. I'm okay. I'll just take it when my joints hurt.
Okay. Yeah, we love playing doctor now. We love
Right.
playing we love playing doctor. And that's why I kind of want to stress that point a little bit because I worked with a lady that had MS years ago. And I remember seeing her over the years, she was declining. And sometimes she'd come to work, she's dragging her leg. And one day, her and I was talking, and she says, "I don't take my medication." I was stunned. She said, "It just makes me feel tired, and I just choose not to take it." I didn't have any words for her. I mean, it's her personal choice, but I didn't have any words. So to me, when I looked at her, she rather, feel this, look this way, and go on what she's doing as opposed to taking a medication. So yeah, I mean, I joke about playing doctor, but and it's easy for someone that doesn't have a condition to stand back and say do X, Y, Z, as opposed to the person that's feeling it, doing what's necessary. How did your loved ones responded to you when they heard you had lupus?
Very supportive, very, very supportive. My mom, she is my number one fan, so she's going to support me in every way possible. She went with me to doctor appointments. When I first started getting on the medication and we're getting a little regular with it, I had some episodes where my face would swell up so big that my eyes would shut, and so I couldn't drive. And so she would go with me during appointments. My sister, she would have to drive me to work at times, especially when I was having a flare. I would have a lot of flares during the early first couple years because, I guess my body was really starting to manifest in other ways. And so I've always had a lot of support. My brother, always, again, one of my biggest supporters. So that's never been an issue for me.
Okay. Do us a favor, at least do me a favor. Take me with you to a doctor's visit. And I want to go to a visit, not currently, we can do that too, but let's go to a doctor visit after you realize you have lupus or if you've been told you have lupus. Bring us into from walking into and what you faced when you went to the doctor visit.
A doctor visit for lupus is going to be with a rheumatologist. Um, I would go in the rheumatologist. Now, hopefully, I would have gotten my blood work done before the visit. So, we had something to talk about. Uh, but basically, my visits were back then. I used to see a world renowned lupus specialist at Johns Hopkins. And basically, my visits were just to see where I was on a scale for pain. I was getting a steroid shot every time I went to help me, move through my daily life. If there were any flares, there were, prescriptions for my skin, which was just nothing but steroids, creams. Nothing really major, very uneventful. But back then, it was a matter of who my doctor was, right? Because I'm a big believer in the doctor. Your doctor determines your quality of life. So back then, I did not have a good experience with that rheumatologist.
Hmm.
Uh, the bedside manner was lacking. Uh, so I'm not sure if I'm going too far into that or not.
No, that's no. I think it's a very important point that you're making here because how did you handle that when the bedside manner wasn't there and the rheumatologist wasn't really in your favor? How did you deal with that?
Right. Because, every time I would go to her, it just seemed like it was, again, Johns Hopkins, it's a teaching hospital. All you had were your students coming in. I felt like a guinea pig. Every time I went, they were trying to sum up what was going on. Again, I'd get my steroid shot and I'd be on my way. But this one appointment, I had a very severe skin breakout, and it left me with scarring on my arms. And she said, "Oh my God, you're going to be permanently disfigured." Now, Mark, who says that to,
Yeah.
who says that? And I literally ran out of her office. I left her office. That was the last day I saw her. And that's how I handled that. I searched for a new rheumatologist. By this time, this I was probably about 4 or 5 years in, and I had met someone else who had lupus at the hair salon, and she and I had become close, and so she referred her rheumatologist to me, who was, I mean, the best rheumatologist on the planet, if you ask me. And almost immediately after he started treating me, my quality of life turned around. I did a
Beautiful.
180.
Yeah.
I did a total 180.
I like that. And I thanks for sharing that, because a lot of times we go to a doctor, no matter what type of doctor it is, and we don't realize we're paying to be there, and we should be given the utmost respect, courtesy, and they should handle our situation with care. And if that doctor, he or she, is not doing that, don't go to them. Find another one. Choose to, because that's what your insurance is paying for, realistically. So if
Yeah.
they're not handling you with the care that they deserve or treating you the way you need to be treated, find another one. There's many of them out there, and I'm glad to hear that you chose to do such. And the new doctor, basically, your quality of life improve immediately. I want to move into we're kind of focusing on the physical aspect, and again, it basically tears at the body's tissues and organs, lupus. But there have to be, I would assume, not assume, I have to know, take the word assume out, that there's a mental part of this that comes along with this. And it's there every morning, it's there every night. And that's what I want to kind of open up and start to hear about, because I'm sure in the beginning, I mean, after 21 years, I'm sure in the beginning, there could have been some things there. And 21 years of dealing with something attacking your organs and your organs and your tissues. Yeah, that's mentally. How is Stacy Bynum doing that?
Um, it does weigh on you mentally. You know, um, like I said earlier, you wonder what your outcome is going to be. You wonder how you're going to end up. You wonder what your future is going to be. Um, for some women, it may be, will I have a relationship? Is anybody going to want to um, go on this journey with me? Because lupus is different for everyone. No two people have lupus the same. And so um, that was uh, a lot on my mind, especially because now I'm scarred. My arms, my back, my chest area is really severely scarred. So that does something to your self esteem. And like you asked earlier, who was I before? Stacy was the workout queen. People used to call me Bynum Body.
Hmm.
So, like, because I used to train people, and I was just carefree. And now I've got these scars, and so now I cover myself. I'm always covered. In the summertime, I'm covered because, I don't want, people staring at me. And I have my moments, sometimes where I I force myself to go out in a t-shirt because I'm just trying to push past how I'm feeling about these scars because I'm almost of the resolve that I'm never going to like them. I'm never going to be okay with these scars. I'm just being honest. I pray about, being okay about it. And of course, the people who love you, it's always, we're not worrying about your scars. We don't care about your scars. Well, of course you're not because you love me, right? And so, and I know there are other people who are dealing with other things, and I can't speak for them, but I just know what my mind goes through. And I have these gymnastics in my mind where, like I said, okay, I'm going to be brave today. I'm going to have a win today. I'm going to go out here in this 85-degree weather and I'm going to leave my denim jacket at home.
Hmm.
And those are wins for me, even at my big age. And those are wins. And that's how I take it. And so I've got to be very diligent on, um, encouraging myself, and that's why I try so hard to encourage other people, with lupus. And if they're dealing with things like scars and all of that, I tell them you have to take it one day at a time. I don't tell them just ignore the scars because I don't just ignore my scars. You can't, but you've got to navigate it the best you can.
Yeah. Now you said something I heard might have heard side of something about I guess a relationship or something of that form.
Mhm.
I'm going to ask: did you keep yourself from relationships basically based on your scars, or were you able to push past that?
Um, I have not pushed past that. That's a large part of why I've not even pursued a relationship because relationships that I have been in, uh, I feel like when I try to expose my scars, you know, I feel that I'm looked at differently, you know, be it on their part. Do they want to be out with someone, with these scars? Because if I wanted to wear something strapless or sleeveless, you know what I mean? Uh, am I going to be confident in that? Probably not. I don't know the last time I've worn things like that, um, without a jacket. And so, I know I've had two relationships where I felt like they were uncomfortable with the way I looked. And so that's why um, I haven't pursued anything.
Okay. Now I'm just going to ask this: you say you felt like, or did they tell you?
They didn't tell me. I felt like.
Okay.
I felt like, and that's part of that mental, like, I know they probably, are looking at me strange because, like, the scars that are on my chest, no matter what I wear, you're going to see them, you know. Um, and so that insecurity, um, that I had or have, probably pushed them away. That could very well be.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, Lupus Warrior. That's a title I heard you use. And wanted to go into that because I want to get the backdrop behind that because I think that's a great phrase. I really do. Lupus Warrior. Explain to us what is a Lupus Warrior.
A lupus warrior is someone who, in spite of everything that we deal with, is someone who is determined to push forward, is determined to face whatever it is that they have to on a daily basis with a positive outlook. And that's it for me right there. We have to have a positive outlook. It's every day of the week, Mark. I am in pain every day of the week. And so I could either give up and lay in the bed or lay on this couch all day, every day, and cry about it, or I can get up and keep pushing. And that's what I have learned to do over these 27 years is just do whatever I have to do. If it means to stay in the gym, I have to stay in the gym. I have to work out because that, I believe, has helped me manage as well as I have, is because my early regimen of weight training and all of that, I think my body was conditioned. And so a lot of the things that people have faced when it comes to lupus, I didn't experience. And so a warrior is determined,
Hmm.
um, quite frankly.
Okay. Are you still in the gym a little bit? You still work out?
Now, over this last 4 months, I have not. I have not been able to because I was just taken off the steroids, the prednisone. I had been on the prednisone for 26 years. And I had to get a new rheumatologist because the one that was giving me such a great quality of life, he moved his practice to like a boutique practice, and um, I couldn't afford to go to him anymore. He never took insurance, first of all, but he went to a different type of practice. So this rheumatologist, she's a black rheumatologist, and she can't stand prednisone. So she took me off of that. And ever since then, the level of joint pain and things like that has increased. And so I've been navigating through that, and I'm getting a little better. I tried to work out last week, and I've become significantly weaker. And so I know now that I've got to be more diligent in that, in getting to the gym and doing something. I have weights here at the house. And so, I've got to start really hitting those again. But so far over the last 4 months, I have not.
If you don't mind me asking, why is she taking you off the prednisone? I know she's against it, but what was the reasons why when it seemed like it was doing you so good?
Well, prednisone will destroy your bones. Long-term use of prednisone will destroy your bones. And so um, she wanted to try me on another drug called methotrexate. And so I've been trying that, but I'm not I'm not crazy about it, because whenever a doctor wants me to go on a medication, I'm going to research everything about it. I'm researching um, how many black people were in the study as opposed to other ethnicities, because lupus affects more African American women than any other ethnicity. And so I want to know how we have fared in the studies. And so the methotrexate, I don't know if I feel that it's working. It's still early. Um, so I may not be continuing on that. And who knows, I may ask to be put on the prednisone again, because what I am noticing is small changes the older I get, small changes with lupus. Like I feel more joint aches, and I don't feel as well when the weather is like it is. Changes in the barometric pressure, um, the humidity. It does me in.
Hmm.
And so when it's clear, sky is clear, no humidity, I'm 100%.
Okay. I spoke earlier of the brave courage that I see when I listen to you, when I look at a video of you, and the way you help others or speak and help others and motivate others. And I wonder, where does that come from? If one was to really look at Stacy, where would they find that section? Where does that come from?
Well, that came from um, early when I was diagnosed. And I don't remember the year of the walk. When the walk for lupus first came to Baltimore, I participated. I was a top fundraiser for that, and we had a dinner for all the top teams like the next week. And I went to the dinner, and they had a video, and they showed the video. And Mark, when the video came on, it opened with a graveyard. And I was thinking, who does that? Who opens a video showing a graveyard scene? And it was that moment I was determined to not live my life that way, waiting to die. No. So at that moment, I was determined that I was going to have a different look, a different outlook with lupus. And anybody who would listen, um, I was going to make sure they had a different outlook. That was not going to be my story. I'm determined that that's not going to be somebody else's story. So at that moment, I just said, no, I'm going to put a different face on lupus. And so I started, a group, Sisters Living with Lupus, that, yeah, we all are facing something different, but it's all in the way we look at it. You know, yes, I may be facing pain every day, but it's the way I'm going to navigate through that. I know this is my life. So I've got to do whatever I have to do to, help me manage. And so because a lot of support groups, this is why to this day, I don't do support groups for lupus. And don't get me wrong, some support groups, they help others. But from what I've seen, it's just like a spirit of depression on those groups. And we've got enough to deal with, Mark, to just wallow. And I don't want to come off as insensitive or anything, but I know where our mind goes, your body will follow. And so I I just try to keep my mind on other things, things that are healthy, things that are, what do? I make natural juices. I'm making sure I find ways what can reduce inflammation because this is all lupus is. It's inflammation. So I'm looking for ways. What can I eat? What type of juices can I make? Um, you know, Working out, it helps. You may not be able to lift weights, but you may be able to walk. You may be able to swim. So I want to give you alternatives instead of just giving up. So that's where that came from.
Well, all right. How could someone, you spoke of, I think you said it was a group that you have with sisters. How could someone connect with your group?
That is a Facebook group. That's Sisters Living with Lupus, SISTAS, Living with Lupus. That's a Facebook group. I also have a TikTok page where I do really most of my postings, my videos, and giving all types of information. Um, and that is This Loopy Blings on TikTok.
Okay. I started out earlier and I asked the question, who was Stacy before lupus? I'm going to bring it back to it. Who is Stacy with lupus?
Stacy with lupus is, again, a warrior. Stacy with lupus is someone who will continue on a daily basis to fight through those things that may cause me to pause, like my scar issues. I'm going to keep pressing with that. Stacy on a daily now. Um, I'm going to encourage as many people as I can, as many people who will listen to me. I'm going to be on that soapbox. So that's me every day now with lupus is still trying to find ways to get as much of me back pre-lupus, um, as I can, because I know I've had some changes again over these last 4 months that I have been determined to get back. I'm determined to get back into the gym on a regular basis because I know once I get in it, it's going to turn things around. So that's Stacy. I'm just going to continue to press forward and encourage others.
I love your determination. I do. We wish you nothing and pray nothing but the best for you. And I'm sure the best is coming for you. Now, it hasn't been, I'm not saying the best has been in the past, but I know the best is
Mhm.
coming for you. I want to thank you for taking time out to really speak on lupus. It's not something that we kind of hear about often. And you made a point earlier when you said that it affects sisters more often than any other race. And ironically, I don't think we know that.
Mhm.
I don't think as a society we're well aware of that, and that needs to be out there because my quick thought is that there's probably a lot of sisters out there suffering silently to themselves, and they may not be as boisterous about as you are, and they need to be, and they need to be heard. They need to be cared for. They need to be loved. So I'm glad that you took the chance to basically, and I'm happy what you're doing. That who you are. You're not. When I think of you, I think of Stacy has lupus, but lupus doesn't have Stacy,
Exactly.
and
Absolutely.
and that's it right there.
Yeah. I'm going to continue to live as much of my dreams that I have. I'm going to continue to write my books. I'm going to continue on with my businesses. And so, you know, I'm not going to stop.
No, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Once again, thanks for coming by. We appreciate you took some time out to basically enlighten us into who you are, what you're going through, and I thank you much.
Well, thank you again, Mark. It was nice that um, even considered me. I appreciate it and giving me an opportunity to share with others. And I hope, just, if it means just one person was helped, then my mission is complete.
And there it is. Close the door on this one, folks. You know how we do this. We walk out, we say the same thing just about every time. And if I don't say it, you know it already. God loves you and I love you too. We'll get together real soon. Take care of yourself.